Thanks to the witnesses for being here. General Votel, let me turn back to you. It's nice to see you again in a somewhat different capacity than when I saw you last before the Senate Armed Services Committee. But let me ask you about this report. Just on the subject of supply chains, what do you think that we should learn from the pandemic about the vulnerability of our critical supply chains in particular?
Thank you, Senator, and it's good to see you again. I think the most important point is we have to come to some resolution on what it is that we need to have stockpiled, and what those essential resources and supplies are that we need to have stockpiled, of course, and ready to go. And then we need to make sure that we know where those things come from, and what the supply chains are associated with those, and where there are dependencies that lead us overseas, or where our production capacities are within the United States that can be invoked to address those. So I really think this gets down to overall awareness and understanding of what we are going to have on hand, and then how we reach out and grab the things that we need as a crisis emerges.
Let me ask you about the just-in-time production. It seems to me that one of the weaknesses with our supply chains is this just-in-time production model and other efficiency measures that, while they no doubt help the corporate bottom line, also can leave us vulnerable and exposed in a crisis, as we saw this last year. You talk about this a little bit in the report, I believe. I wondered if you could just discuss the problem, some of the problems with the private sector's emphasis on just-in-time production as it relates to the national response enterprise.
Sure, Senator. So the real challenge here is that when we do just-in-time supply, what that means is that the initial surge of capabilities that we need early in a crisis to respond and bring things under control may not be immediately available to us. And of course, this is the challenge. And so what is needed is there is more coordination and discussion between those at the federal and perhaps state level, who are managing these stockpiles, and those who are producing the items that go into them. And we will need to accept the fact that we have to work very closely with businesses to provide, have stuff on hand, rotated in and out of stockage, so that it stays up to date, and that the businesses will have arrangements that they aren't doing this at a loss to their bottom line. So there has to be much closer coordination over this particular issue right here. It's absolutely critical, especially in the early stages of a crisis.
Let me ask you about the responsibilities that our largest corporations have when it comes to this issue, and in particular, supply chain resilience. So, for example, what I'm thinking of is if we have a major corporation that produce certain essential goods, like medical devices, for instance, should they be required to take steps to boost supply chain resilience, onshore jobs back domestically, report on where they source their products, things of that nature, given the fact that we rely on these products so much, these essential products?
Thanks, Senator. I'd invite Ms. Rogers to comment on this as well. But I think, yes, I think we have to, for these organizations, private sector organizations that we rely on for these critical resources, they need to be incentivized and encouraged to make sure that we know with some level of reliability that we can get our hands on those particular supplies.
Yeah, Senator, if I may address that in two different ways. You are correct that resiliency in companies today often means sort of idle capacity, which is the antithesis of a lean, efficient, profitable business model. But I don't think you have to do away with that, actually. With today's innovative technologies, the widespread adoption of them could actually build in resiliency. The adoption of 3D printing, of digital twin, of additional AI and other data sharing, that could allow a surge capacity without delayed time and still allowing a company to be profitable. You could further enhance that, as the general said, with a combination of incentives. And I would say it's sort of modern day public-private partnership. The private sector has the innovation, the ingenuity, and the wherewithal to be able to do this. What the government needs is to create a path to allow those companies that want to help in the state of a crisis to do so. And it could be a combination of tax incentives, of grants. It just depends upon the size of a company and what a company needs. A smaller company might need access to capital, so it could be also a loan. So I would say it needs to be a combination of integrating state-of-the-art technology along with tax incentives, grants, and loans to the private sector.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Rogers, for that. Thank you, General. General, let me switch to FEMA, if I could, for a minute. FEMA, of course, took a major role in procuring and distributing PPE during the early stages of the pandemic, including Project Airbridge, which arranged air transport for PPE from other countries. How would you assess FEMA's role in that operation?
Well, again, I think perhaps Mr. Fugate can provide some more expert information on this, but in my view, what FEMA encompasses here is the expertise and the management skills to deal with crises. So I think their role in this early on is absolutely essential. And as we've seen, they end up being an organization that becomes a go-to for many of the crises that our country faces. Craig, thoughts, please?
Yeah, thanks, Senator. They did what they had to do. I think our concern on the commission was it was late to need. It wasn't clear that FEMA had this role. And prior planning, we had focused on FEMA's role in supporting the governors as the consequences of a pandemic, with HHS having the primary lead on supply chain, distribution, acquisition. And so I think, as we pointed out, clarifying these roles now, that FEMA does have a role supporting HHS. These are things that FEMA would likely be called upon. I think even improves that capability and speeds it up so it's not late in the inning before they're being utilized.
Very good. Well, thank you all. I've got some more questions I'll submit for the record, but thank you for your work and thank you for being here. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Hawley. And just as we look at timing, there will likely be an opportunity for